All right, welcome back to the Hoops Nerd Show. Guys, today I'm going to have a little channel update with you and let you know what I want to do with this show. I also want to talk a little bit about the Utah Jazz direction and this offseason. It's a new era of the Hoops Nerd Show again, I guess. I don't know what's going on. All right, guys, I've had some weeks off. It's the off season. We're in full swing. Things are coming that are going to be really interesting for this Utah Jazz team. A major fork in the road coming up. But before we get into that, I think I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I want to do with this channel. Maybe you'll like it, maybe not. But I got to do what's best for me, and that what's best for me is just talking to you. I have been doing, if you haven't noticed, I've been doing podcasts with different Jazz people out there that I am interested in hearing what they have to say. And it's been a lot of fun, and I like doing it. I'm going to keep doing it. But on the days that I don't talk to someone like that, I'm going to do podcasts type episodes like this. It's basically going to be me talking. I want sometimes to be a little bit like the other guys out there, and it's hard. It takes time. And with 4 kids, me wanting to have a relationship with Mrs. Hoops Nerd, I have to do things in a way that work best for this channel. So we're going with a plain background. I bought some shelves. We're going to fill this up with Jazz stuff. I don't know, but this makes it easier for me to post videos, and whatever is making it easier for me to post videos and get these up quickly is best for the channel. It takes a lot of time to edit and do all the different effects and all the different things. And they're fun, and I'll still do some video stuff because that's related to my agency that I'm a part of now, the network I work with. And we'll still do some fun things, but it's got to be something that I really want to do. And basically what I want to do with you guys is talk about the Jazz in podcast form. It's going to, I don't know if this is going to be daily, but that's my goal. We'll try to do this as much as I can. Maybe it's a 5-day-a-week thing, 4-day-a-week. We'll see as we go what I do. So anyways, that's the channel update. It's going to be more videos, but a little bit simpler. And I'm going to try to have video over top and stuff like that. But it's got to be a little simpler. And the editing might be not quite as heavy, so I can just get it, put it out there, and get it to you guys. So it's what we're going to do. All right, let's talk about the Jazz offseason. This Utah Jazz offseason is huge. The Utah Jazz have to make some major decisions. And honestly, Ryan Smith, Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, you have to be very clear with what your plan is from here on out. I've talked about this before, that I have been very patient with this rebuild. The last 2 years, I have seen what they have been trying to do. And we talked about that in depth, me and Andy Larson, if you want to go watch that video. But now is the point where Utah has to make some serious decisions. And really, the big one is Lauri Markkanen. What are we doing? Are we signing Lauri Markkanen, or are we going to take an offer if it comes in? The Jazz have so many. If this is a choose your own adventure, the Jazz have multiple choices they can do. The major choice, though, at the beginning of the book is, do you renegotiate Lauri Markkanen in August, or do you make a move? And I get it. It may be as simple as, if someone gives an offer to the Utah Jazz, then maybe they just take it. Maybe it's as simple as that. But I don't know. I don't know if the Jazz can just put their hopes and destiny in something as simple as waiting for someone to come and give them a huge offer. I think the Jazz have to be extremely active this offseason with whatever the plan they want to do is. We're watching the NBA Finals. You watch the Danny Ainge built Boston Celtics. At least he got their 2 core superstars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, both of whom were top 3 picks. Both of them. Interestingly enough, both of them were used with Brooklyn Nets picks and not with their own picks. And I'm sure that's what Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck and Ryan Smith would like to do. The best thing is if you can keep Lauri Markkanen, much like the Paul Pierce days, and then they trade for someone else, or much like those Boston Celtics teams that weren't that great, and then all of a sudden they add Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to a team that they didn't really have to tank all that much. Well, The Jazz aren't in the same situation. The Jazz have picks from the Wolves and from the Cavaliers, and the Wolves are a very good basketball team. They went to the final 4 teams of the NBA, the Western Conference, and the Cavaliers are a playoff team. And the latest rumors are that Donovan Mitchell might be re-signing with the Cavs, and they don't want to trade Darius Garland. So they're looking like a playoff team, not a championship team, but a playoff team. So these picks that the Jazz have next year, the 2025 picks, are likely in the 20s, and more than likely somewhere between 25 and 30. And so Utah has to make a choice. Are you going to build around Lauri Markkanen, a player who does not play with the ball in his hands but plays off the ball, and then build with picks from 25 to 30 starting in 2025? Is that what you're going to do with your future? Or do you want to start taking your destiny into your own hands now and then hope that those future picks are actually better? And that to me is the right choice. The last 2 years, the Utah Jazz have gone into the season without a very clear plan. They go in, they start winning games, which is fun. We all like to win games. It's more fun. I get more views. I get more clicks on SLC Dunk. But it does not mean long-term success, and we've seen that. The Jazz, when they had Conley and Vanderbilt and all the Colin Sexton, all these players they got, Malik Beasley, all those players from the Rudy Gobert trade, from the Cavaliers trade, Lauri Markkanen, obviously, they were a solid team. They start 10-3. Well, it really put a wrench in things when they wanted to get a top pick in that draft. And so the smart thing for them was to make that trade deadline move like they did, and they drop, and they were lucky enough to get Taylor Hendricks, who's turned out to be a solid player. Now, I don't know if Taylor Hendricks is going to be an all-star. I don't think you can predict that from what we've seen. But also, I'm not going to say never, never say never. Guys tend to develop at different rates and to different levels that we don't predict. But I think it would be foolish to think that the Jazz with Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George are set with their team. I think Keontae George has a chance to be kind of like the Kyrie Irving role that we're seeing with the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not quite sure he's up to the Steph Curry level. Never say never. It's possible. But I don't know if that's exactly what he is. We don't know what he is yet. That's the truth. Does anyone know exactly what Taylor Hendricks is going to be in 3 or 4 years, or what Keontae George is going to be? I have huge hopes. I think Keontae George has a crazy offensive ceiling. But I also think it's crazy to think the Jazz are just set. And so the Jazz have to make some serious decisions. And in my opinion, Utah has to go into this upcoming season looking to get that top 3 pick. You have to get your Jason Tatum, your Jaylen Brown. Interestingly enough, who else goes number 3? Luka Doncic, right? So we've got 3 players in the finals, all 3 of them being ball dominant, high-level scorers, especially Luka Doncic, and then Jason Tatum, and then Jaylen Brown, who's turned himself into that. But those teams don't get to where they are if they don't get those guys at those number 3 picks. So Utah has to decide if you're going to renegotiate Lauri Markkanen and sign him long-term, is that what's best for you? And are you going to be bad enough to get one of those picks? Because one of the things the Jazz cannot do this season is have another year where they're in between 25 and 35 wins, more likely closer to 35 if you're keeping Markkanen. And I know they're in the Western Conference, but then trying to tank after trade deadline again. Make a choice, Jazz. Make a choice. And I'll be honest, if the Jazz go into this offseason and they trade for someone like Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine, and they try really hard to be a C-plus basketball team, that's not going to do it. We've already seen some things they did from last year kind of backfire. Talking to Andy Larson on the podcast, go listen to it. We know that the John Collins is more than available. They really want to trade that contract. But guess what? A player that you really want to trade that makes $20 million, that gets really tough. And I know the cap is rising, but that's hard to trade. And so if Utah brings in like a Zach LaVine, who's going to make crazy money, or Brandon Ingram, who is expecting a big-time contract, is that the smartest thing to do? And then if you get stuck with those contracts and you have an actual opportunity for some other move, can you actually move them? Because they weren't able to trade John Collins' trade deadline, nor even Colin Sexton, who I think has a lot of value. So Utah has to make a choice. And bringing on Lauri Markkanen, giving him big-time max money. By the way, it's bigger than normal because guess what? The cap is rising. We already got the cap numbers, and the NBA is going to 3 new TV partners. Big-time money is coming. And are you really going to put all this money towards Lauri Markkanen, who does not have the ball in his hands, but he's just good enough that he's going to put you in that 8 to 12 range again? Is that really what you want to do? I think Utah has to look at this upcoming draft, which is filled with superstar level talent at the top. You know, Cooper Flagg looks like a modern day Kevin Garnett on the wing in a lot of ways. I love that comparison from Bill Simmons. You've got Ace Bailey, who looks like Paul George 2.0. You get yourself a star like that. You go into 2026 and you get Cam Boozer, son of Carlos, and you bring him in too. And guess what? Utah has to be careful, because if they go top 10 again next year, then that 2026 pick is top 8 protected. And if you go into that season and you know that you're going to miss out on both your swaps in 2026. By the way, I believe Jason Tatum was taken with a swap, right? So you go into that season with a chance to lose both those swaps in 2026 and your pick and come out of 2026 with 0 picks. That's really scary stuff. So Utah has to be bad enough not only to be bad in this upcoming draft, but if they are bottom 10 again, they have to be even worse. Because guess what? If it's 2026 and what happened this year in the lottery happens then, the Jazz are screwed. Utah comes into this lottery, this draft, at number 8, and what happens? They get jumped twice. You can't have that happen again. You can't have it. That is the worst case scenario for Utah, to go into 2026 and have that happen. Utah has to make a choice. And here's the thing. If you go into 2025 and 2026 in both those drafts and you get a star level player out of both, then all of a sudden those picks that we're talking about later with Cleveland and Minnesota are a lot better. Because guess what? In 2027, what are you bringing in? You're bringing in the Lakers pick that you are going to get. Top 5 protected, yes. But maybe you make some sort of move to remove that protection from the Lakers. Though that team is going to be older LeBron, Anthony Davis 2 years older. They are going to bring in some sort of star at some point, and that's going to be an aging star next to AD. There is very high potential for that pick to be great. And then in 2027, you've got Cavs pick, Minnesota pick. Who knows what Donovan Mitchell is doing by 2027? And who knows where the Wolves will be 2-3 years from now? You have no idea. We know what happened with Brooklyn. It fell apart. And they are 1 year removed from barely even making the playoffs. So Utah has to make a choice, and the smart one is to go for as high a pick as they can in 2025. Now, if they believe they can get a top 5 pick with Lauri Markkanen, it kind of seems like that's what they're thinking. But that's pretty scary stuff, because then are you just going to trade Markkanen the following year? You're going to be better than bottom 8. Do they really not want a pick in 2026 that is star-studded? AJ Debonsa's in that draft, guys. AJ Debonsa. You don't want a chance at him? Could you imagine going in and next year getting Cooper Flagg, who's going to be a transformational player? You go out and you get another high pick in that next draft. I just don't see why the Jazz would not want to do that. And the reason I'm saying all this is because the Utah Jazz have said that championship is the goal. Well, if championship is the goal, we know what you need to have. You have to have a top 5 player on your team, or top 5 caliber. Jason Tatum, you could argue, is like top 10, but he's been top 5 in a lot of ways. I don't know. He's close enough. And we obviously know Luka Doncic is there. But anyways, that's what the Jazz have to do. Guys, this is the new style of video. We're going to do new ones every day. Hopefully, we'll see. Keep me honest. I'm going to try my best. And we're going to talk about the latest Jazz news, have takes on it. This one's probably a little longer than I expect all of these to be, but this is what I want to do. It's going to be a little more podcast style. We'll talk about the different things. Guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you next time.